You won't believe what I did after my daughter told me. Dad, don't come to my baby's baptism. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your own child shut you out of their family celebration? The smell of rain lingered in the air that morning, the kind that makes you remember every mistake you ever made. I stood by the window, watching the drizzle hit the driveway where I'd once taught Claire to ride her bike. Her Idhorn bike. She was 5 then, knees scabbed, pigtails bouncing, shouting, "Don't let go yet, Daddy." I never did. Not until she could balance on her own. That's the thing about being a father. You spend your life holding on, only for them to one day ask you to let go completely. The phone call came on a Thursday evening, soft at first. "Dad, listen," Claire began, her voice trembling slightly. "About the baptism on Sunday. It's probably better if you don't come." I froze, thinking I'd misheard. "Better if I don't come? Claire, I'm your father. I should be there." She hesitated, then sighed. "It's just, Ethan thinks it might make things awkward. You and Mom being divorced, it's complicated. His parents will be there, and you know how they are about appearances." Appearances. That word again. Always appearances. I glanced at the dusty frame on my mantel, our family portrait from 1999. Claire, all dimples and sunshine, sitting between me and her mother, back when laughter filled this house instead of silence. "Claire," I said quietly, "you think your child's baptism would be awkward because of me?" "I'm sorry, Dad. It's just one day. We'll see you another time." Then the line went dead. She didn't just exclude me. She erased me. I sat there for a long while, the phone still pressed to my ear, the clock ticking like a metronome to my humiliation. I looked around the living room filled with her childhood relics, her ballet trophies, the wooden horse I carved for her 10th birthday, the baby blanket her mother knitted, every piece of my love gathering dust. And that's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, but a cold kind of resolve. She wanted distance? She'd get it, but not before I left something behind. She'd never forget. Because some gifts don't come wrapped in bows. Some are wrapped in truth. I didn't sleep that night. The rain kept whispering against the window, and somewhere between the thunder and my thoughts, I realized I wasn't just hurt, I was done pretending. Everything was fine. Claire had taken after her mother in more ways than she realized. The charm, the ambition, the ability to twist guilt into politeness. Her husband, Ethan, was worse. One of those polished men with sharp smiles and soft words. I'd given him the down payment for their house. He called it a loan at the time. I was still waiting to see a penny back. They said my presence would make the baptism awkward. But I knew what they really meant. They didn't want their perfect in-laws, the wealthy hunters, to see the man who once worked 2 jobs to keep his daughter in private school. The man who still wore the same watch her mother gave him before she left. They didn't want the world to see the truth of where Claire came from. The next morning, I went to the attic. The smell of dust and cedar filled the air as I opened a trunk I hadn't touched in over 20 years. Inside were memories, her baby shoes, the first crayon drawing she ever made, an envelope with her mother's handwriting on it. My hand trembled as I picked it up. It was addressed to Claire. I remembered that letter. Her mother, Alice, had written it before she left us. I'd found it on the kitchen table beside her wedding ring. But Claire was too young back then, too innocent to understand why her mother walked out. I told her Alice had gone away for work, hoping someday I'd find the right words. Now I realized I didn't need to explain anything. Her mother's words could do it for me. I reread the letter, the ink slightly faded but still legible. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, you're old enough to know the truth. I love you more than life itself, but your father and I have drifted apart. I made mistakes, and so did he, but never doubt that he fought for you. He worked himself to the bone to give you everything I couldn't. He's the reason you have the life you do. Don't ever let pride make you forget where you came from. Love, Mom. My throat tightened. I remembered Alice's tears when she wrote those words, and suddenly I knew exactly what to do. That letter would be my gift. But not alone. I wanted Claire to understand, not through anger, but through the weight of her own conscience. So I took out a small wooden box from my workbench. I sanded it smooth, lined it with red velvet, and placed the letter inside. On top I added an old photo, Me holding newborn Claire in the hospital, my face exhausted but radiant. And beside it, I placed the baptism gift I'd already bought weeks ago. A delicate silver cross necklace, the same one her mother had worn on our wedding day. The next day, while everyone gathered at the church I wasn't welcome in, I arrived early. The parking lot was still half empty, morning mist curling around the gravestones nearby. I slipped quietly through the side path to the church office, where gifts were being collected for the reception afterward. I left the wooden box among the others, neatly wrapped in gold paper. No note, no name, just a small tag that read, "For Claire and her daughter, from someone who loves you both." Then I left. I didn't attend the baptism. I sat in my car on the hill overlooking the church, watching the sunlight break through clouds as faint hymns floated in the air. Somewhere inside that building, my daughter was celebrating new beginnings, and she had no idea that one small box would soon open the door to the past she had tried to bury. The church bells were still echoing when Claire carried her baby into the reception hall. Guests laughed, clinking glasses. The air smelled of vanilla frosting and fresh lilies. Ethan's parents floated from table to table, basking in compliments about their beautiful granddaughter and perfect little family. Claire smiled on cue, but her heart wasn't in it. Because somewhere in that golden pile of baby gifts, soft blankets, silver spoons, monogrammed bibs, sat one small, old-fashioned box, wrapped in gold paper. It didn't look like the others. It wasn't from Tiffany or Neiman Marcus. It didn't come with glittering bows or brand logos. But when she picked it up, something about its weight, about the familiar handwriting on the tiny tag, made her stomach tighten. For Claire and her daughter, from someone who loves you both. Her hands trembled. She knew that handwriting. It couldn't be. Dad? Ethan glanced over her shoulder. What's that one? I don't know, she said quickly, trying to steady her voice. They moved to the center of the table, and as the laughter and chatter filled the air, she peeled back the paper. Slowly, the gold shimmered under the afternoon light, until the last fold fell away, revealing a simple wooden box, smooth, dark, handmade. When she lifted the lid, the scent of cedar hit her first. Then she saw it, the photograph. Her father, younger then, cradling her newborn self, in the hospital, his eyes tired but proud, her breath caught. Underneath the photo was a folded letter in a small velvet pouch. The crowd noise faded. The world seemed to shrink around her. She unfolded the letter, her mother's handwriting unmistakable. Her vision blurred as she read the first line, "My dearest Claire," each word carved deeper than the last, like a slow unraveling of every lie she'd ever told herself about her parents. When she reached the end, her hands fell limp in her lap. The necklace slipped from the velvet pouch, delicate silver gleaming under the light. Her mother's cross. "Claire, are you okay?" Ethan's voice broke through the silence. She couldn't answer. She just sat there, staring at that necklace, at the letter trembling in her hands as memories flooded back. Her father staying up late to sew her Halloween costume after her mother left. The way he never missed a single recital, even when his eyes were red, from overtime shifts. She had shut him out. She had told him not to come, and he had still shown up quietly, lovingly, leaving a piece of her mother's heart for her to find. Tears blurred her vision. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need a minute," she whispered, hurrying toward the exit. Guests turned to watch. Ethan followed, confusion tightening his jaw. "Claire, what's wrong?" She spun around, the letter clutched to her chest. "Did you know he sent this? Did you know?" Ethan frowned. "Who? Your dad? No, I told you inviting him would only." She didn't let him finish. "Stop," her voice broke. "You don't get it. He didn't come to ruin anything. He came to remind me who I am." Her knees buckled as she sank onto a pew near the church door, sobbing quietly. Guests whispered from a distance. The weight of years, anger, pride, silence, crashed down on her all at once, and then she saw him. Through the open doors, across the parking lot, her father stood by his car, watching, not intruding, just watching. Their eyes met, and in that moment, neither spoke. But everything they'd both wanted to say was there, in the tears streaming down her face, in the small bittersweet smile that crossed his. Claire rose to her feet, The letter crinkled in her shaking hand as she took a step toward him, then another. But by the time she reached the edge of the lot, his car was already rolling down the hill, disappearing into the golden haze of sunset. She clutched the necklace to her heart, whispering into the wind, "Dad, I'm so sorry." For 3 days, Claire couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the silver cross glinting under the church lights, her mother's words echoing in her mind like a song. She couldn't turn off. "He worked himself to the bone to give you everything I couldn't." The letter had torn something open in her heart, something she'd buried under years of polished dinners, polite smiles, and Ethan's endless talk about status. By the 4th morning, she couldn't take it anymore. She told Ethan she was going to visit a client. He didn't question her. He rarely did when the subject wasn't about him. Instead, she drove straight to Willow Lane, the narrow street where her childhood home still stood, like a ghost of simpler times. The house looked smaller now. The white paint had faded. The mailbox leaned slightly, but the roses still bloomed. Along the fence, just like her mother used to plant them, she sat in her car for a full minute, heart pounding, before stepping out. Her father's old pickup truck was parked crookedly by the curb. The sight of it nearly undid her. She took a deep breath and climbed the steps. When the door opened, he stood there, older, thinner than she remembered, but still with that same steady calm in his eyes. "Claire." Her name came out as both a question and a prayer. She froze in the doorway, the cross glinting from around her neck. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I should have called. I should have invited you. I was stupid, and I let—" He lifted a hand gently. "You don't owe me an apology, sweetheart. I understand." But his voice cracked on that last word. Tears blurred her eyes. "You shouldn't. You've always understood, even when I didn't deserve it." For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock, the same one from her childhood. Then he stepped aside. "Come in." She walked through the doorway and felt the years fall away. Everything was just as she remembered. His recliner by the window, the old bookshelf crammed with mystery novels, her high school photo still on the mantel. Dust gathered around the edges, but it felt like stepping into time. On the coffee table sat a half-finished puzzle, a mug of cold coffee, and something that caught her attention, a medical envelope folded neatly, beside a bottle of pills. Her breath hitched. "Dad, are you sick?" He hesitated, then gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The doctors found something a few months ago. Nothing too dramatic. I didn't want to worry you." Claire's chest tightened. "You didn't want to." "Dad, you had a heart attack last year and didn't tell me. Now this?" "I had no right," he said softly. "Not after the distance between us. I figured you had your own family to think about." "That doesn't mean you stopped being mine." Her voice cracked on the word mine. He looked at her for a long time, his eyes glistening. Then he reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek, the same way he used to when she fell off her bike. "You wore the cross," he said quietly. "I haven't taken it off since the baptism." Something in his face shifted. Relief, pride, and maybe the faintest touch of peace. They talked for hours that day, about her childhood, about her mother, about everything that had gone unsaid for years. She told him about her baby girl, how she smiled in her sleep, just like he used to, when he napped in his chair. He listened, nodding, that same warm patience in his gaze that had carried her through life. When she finally stood to leave, the sun was sinking low, painting the room in gold. He walked her to the porch, the wind rustling through the roses. "Dad," she said, "I want you at her next milestone. Every single one. Baptism, birthdays, everything. No more distance." He smiled, faint and tired, but genuine. "We'll see." She didn't realize then how much weight those two words carried. The next morning, Claire woke to a voicemail. Her father's voice, warm, steady, but faint, filled the air of her kitchen. "Morning, sweetheart. Just wanted to say, yesterday meant the world to me. I haven't felt that alive in a long time. Don't worry about me, all right? I'm fine. Truly fine. Take care of that little angel for me." Click. The message was short, but something about it, its quiet finality, made her chest ache. She called him back immediately. No answer. Tried again. Still nothing. By noon, she was pacing her living room, phone clutched tight. Ethan sat at the counter, scrolling through emails. "What's wrong now?" he asked, not looking up. "My dad's not answering." He sighed. "Claire, you just saw him yesterday. He probably went out." But she knew her father. He never went anywhere without answering. He once called her back from a doctor's waiting room, just because he'd missed her ring. A cold dread crept up her spine. She grabbed her keys. "I'm going to check on him." "Claire, you're overreacting." She didn't even answer. The door slammed behind her before his words faded. The drive to Willow Lane felt longer than usual. Clouds gathered over the hills, the air heavy with the scent of oncoming rain. When she turned into his street, everything felt too still. His truck sat in the same place, no lights inside. She knocked once, twice. "Dad, it's me." Silence. Her hand trembled as she tried the doorknob. It opened. The living room was dim, the puzzle still half finished. The mug of coffee replaced by a fresh one, steam long gone cold. "Dad?" No response. Then she saw it, the envelope on the kitchen table, her name written in his unmistakable handwriting. Her throat tightened. She unfolded the letter with shaking hands. "My dear Claire, if you're reading this, it means I've finally gone to see your mother. Don't cry. I lived a good life. One made worth living because of you. I wanted you to understand something about the gift I left at the baptism." That letter wasn't just a reminder. It was my way of giving you back what time and pride had stolen. "There's one more gift for you and your daughter. Check the bottom drawer of my desk. Love always, Dad." Her vision blurred with tears as she stumbled toward his desk. She pulled open the drawer and found a small, sealed envelope and a folder inside. The folder held documents, property deeds, bank statements, insurance forms, the house, his savings, everything, all left in her name. But the smaller envelope was different, thin, light. Inside was a letter to her baby. "For my granddaughter, someday, when you're old enough. I want you to know your grandpa loved you. Before you were even born. I didn't get to hold you, but I'll always be watching over you. Be kind, be strong, and forgive easily." That's what your mother and I both learned the hard way. The sob that escaped Claire's throat shook the quiet house. She clutched the letter to her chest, sinking to her knees. Outside, the rain began to fall. Gentle, steady, like the sky itself was mourning him. When she finally composed herself, she dialed the only number she could think of. Ethan answered, his tone impatient. "Claire, where are you?" She didn't speak at first. Her voice was barely a whisper when she did. "My father's gone." He sighed heavily, as if she'd told him the car had broken down. "I'm sorry, babe, I really am. But listen, did he leave anything we need to handle? You know, paperwork, property." She hung up before he finished. Her father's words echoed in her head. "Forgive easily, but don't let anyone take your worth." And just like that, something inside her hardened. She wasn't going to let Ethan's coldness stain her father's memory. Not anymore. The rain hadn't stopped by the time Claire drove home. Every mile felt heavier, the tires hissing against wet pavement, the world blurring outside her windshield. Her father's letters sat on the passenger seat, beside her, wrapped carefully in her coat, as if even the weather had no right to touch them. When she pulled into the driveway, Ethan was waiting. Under the porch light, arms folded, face tight with irritation. "Finally," he said, "you've been gone all day. You could have at least answered your phone." Claire climbed the steps slowly, her soaked hair clinging to her face. "My father passed away," she said softly. Ethan blinked, then gave a shallow nod. "I heard you say that earlier. I'm sorry for your loss." But his eyes flickered, not with sympathy but calculation. She saw it. She felt it, that faint twitch in his jaw he got whenever money was mentioned, and she realized with sickening clarity he wasn't thinking about her father. He was thinking about what her father had left. "Did he have arrangements? Any estate issues we should deal with?" he asked, his tone careful, too careful. Claire's fingers curled into fists. "Arrangements? You mean inheritance, don't you?" Ethan didn't deny it. "Claire, come on. You know funerals cost money. If he left anything, we should." "We," she interrupted. Her voice was shaking now, not from grief, but from fury. "You told me not to invite him. You said he'd embarrass us. You said, I said what I thought was best for our family. Our family? She laughed, bitter and raw. You don't even know what family means. He was family. You just didn't want anyone to see that he wasn't rich like your parents. Ethan's eyes narrowed. This isn't about respect. This is about responsibility. You and I have bills, a mortgage, and a child to raise. If your father had something set aside, you can't just throw it away out of sentiment. She stared at him for a long, stunned moment. The words her father had written echoed like thunder. Don't let anyone take your worth. Something inside her snapped into focus. The grief turned sharp, clean, determined. Ethan, she said quietly, do you remember the baptism? He frowned. What does that have to do with anything? My father sent a gift that day, she continued. You thought it was nothing. You told me to put it aside. But that gift, it changed everything. It reminded me of who I am. Ethan scoffed. Claire, you're emotional right now. You should. She stepped closer, her voice cutting through his like glass. No, I'm awake. I spent years living in the shadow of what you thought I should be, ashamed of where I came from, embarrassed by the man who raised me alone. I'm done with that. He tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. You want to know what he left? He left me this house, his savings, and his name. Everything he worked for, he gave to me, not us. Me, because he knew I'd finally see who was worth keeping and who wasn't. Ethan's face went pale. Claire, think about what you're saying. I already have. She took off her wedding ring, set it on the porch railing, and walked past him toward the door. Where are you going? He demanded. To plan my father's funeral, she said without turning around, and to teach our daughter what real love looks like. The door shut behind her with a quiet, final click. 3 weeks later, the church bell rang again, this time for her father's memorial. There were no golden decorations, no photographers, no rehearsed speeches, just warmth, laughter, neighbors, friends, people who'd known him, truly known him. Claire stood at the front, her baby in her arms, her mother's cross glinting against her throat. When she finished reading her father's letter aloud, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Then she turned to the final line. Forgive easily, but don't let anyone take your worth. She smiled faintly through her tears. I hear you, Dad, and I promise I won't. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The clouds broke open, sunlight spilling across the churchyard, touching the roses in her hands, the same ones that grew by his porch. Somewhere in that light, she could almost feel him there, watching, proud, at peace. Months later, Claire stood in her father's garden, her daughter toddling beside her, chasing butterflies between the roses. The house on Willow Lane had become their new home, warm, alive, filled with laughter again. She'd kept her father's letters framed above the mantel, right next to the old family photo. Every night, she'd tell her little girl stories about the grandpa who loved her before she was born. And every morning, when sunlight touched that silver cross at her throat, she'd whisper a quiet thank you to the man who gave her everything without ever asking for anything back. Because sometimes, the most powerful gifts don't come in money or things. They come in truth, in forgiveness, in love that never gives up, even when you're told to stay away. Don't shut out the people who raised you just because the world tells you they don't fit your image, because someday you might discover that the very love you tried to hide was the only thing keeping you whole. If this story moved you, subscribe, share it, and tell us in the comments. Have you ever realized too late how much someone loved you?